Good afternoon. Thanks for coming and joining us today for this Pro Talk. My name is David Stevens. I run an organization which is a nonprofit trade association that is focused on the retread industry. And what we're going to talk about today is some of the myths and misconceptions about retreading. And I'm going to challenge some of the ideas you have with facts and figures about how retreading can benefit your fleet, both from a financial standpoint primarily, but also from an environmental standpoint and a performance standpoint. So I've got two of our members here from member companies. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into the presentation.
Hi, my name's Tony Scannell. I'm actually a retreader. We have 4 manufacturing plants that go from Michigan all the way down to Tennessee. In those 4 manufacturing plants, we actually utilize 3 different processes and types of retreads. So if you have questions on that, I'd be able to answer those for you.
Hi, my name is Doug Conley, and I'm the current president of the TRIB Board of Directors. And in my day job, I'm president of Shamrock Marketing. We're a supplier to tire retreading facilities like Tony's for equipment and consumables that are used inside the plants.
Great, thanks guys. So just quickly, what is TRIB? Well, I told you a little bit. It's an organization. We are a nonprofit association founded in 1974. Our mission is simple. It's to promote and defend retreading. So how do we do that? Like events like this. We exhibit every single year. We have a Spot the Retreads contest at our booth. So you can come by and look at the new and retreaded tires we have. See if you can tell the difference. And then we're giving away 4 sets of 8 retreaded tires at the end of the show. Our members are rubber manufacturers, retreaders, equipment manufacturers. So members that you would know, Bridgestone, Goodyear, Michelin, Continental, Marangoni, Accutread, and then all the suppliers to those companies. So I just wanted to take a quick look at the history of the retreading market here in the US. Some of you may not know the retread process first introduced in 1912. So it's been around a long time. Constantly improving. Technology is constantly improving. One of the great things about the retread industry is it directly and indirectly supports almost 270,000 jobs in the US, and it delivers over $28 billion in economic value. So not only are you benefiting your company when you buy retreads, but you're also probably benefiting your local community because that local retreader that operates in your state is providing jobs. So what does the market look like? Well, this is, in the green bars are the replacement new truck tire volume per year, and the blue is retreaded tires that are sold as replacements for the commercial truck market. So you can see retreading has stayed pretty consistent year over year, about 14.5 million retreads for commercial trucking are sold every single year in the US. So taking a look at the market share that exists today. So the big player right now in the US, Bridgestone Bandag, about 44% of the market share for truck and bus tires. Goodyear at 24%. Michelin and Oliver a combined 23%. Then Marangoni at 6%, Continental, and then the rest of the independent retreaders and other brands round out that final percentage. The types of retread plants in the US, so obviously truck and bus is the big business here in the US. About 650 plants that are manufacturing retreaded truck tires in the US. 18 that are specifically doing off-the-road and construction tires. 5 aircraft tire retreading plants. Those of you that don't know that retreads run on about 80% of the commercial aircraft that are taking off and landing in the US. And there's still some few passenger tire retreading operations operating in the US today. So these are the key points I'm going to hit later in the presentation, but why retreading is right for you. First of all, it's the lowest total cost of ownership for you and the highest return on investment you can make in your truck tires. You don't have to make any compromises in safety, reliability, and performance with retreaded tires. And I'm going to talk about the unmatched sustainability and environmental impact of retreading as well. But before we do that, I want to take you inside a retread plant so you can see the process itself, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about how retreaded tires are made. If you were to look at the manufacturing process for a new tire and the manufacturing process for a retread tire, you would find that there's a lot of similarities between those two. But I'm going to take you inside a retread plant today so that you can see that process.
What is a revolution? A revolution is a cycle. What is old becomes new again. Renewal, rebirth, reinvention. For decades, the tire retread industry has been on the forefront of a new revolution. Using state-of-the-art technology and time-proven techniques, retreading is challenging the notion that newer is better. The science behind retreading produces a product that is as safe and performs as well as a brand new tire at a fraction of the price. In fact, retreading can actually deliver better performance because tread designs and rubber compounds can be more easily customized for specific applications. Every day around the world, retread technology is reshaping transportation as we know it for the better by lowering operating costs without sacrificing performance or safety. Not only does retreading save money, it also saves the environment by using less energy and natural resources. Retreading is recycling, which ultimately saves the things that are most important to you. This is one of many state-of-the-art retread facilities around the country. Inside, teams of highly skilled craftsmen and technicians bring new life to worn tires. Let's take a tour and show you how the future is made. Before a worn tire or casing is considered for the retread process, it must pass a thorough inspection from a highly skilled technician. The surface on the inside and outside of the tire is carefully inspected to ensure that there are no visual out-of-service conditions. Every rock and embedded foreign object is removed from the tread so the technician can determine the initial condition of the casing. If the technician identifies any conditions that might have a negative effect on the performance or safety of the final retread, the casing is immediately rejected and returned to the customer or scrapped.
So that's one of those misconceptions, is that all tires that go into a plant get retreaded. But through this inspection process, a lot of tires get pulled out because they don't meet the criteria by the retreaders. So only quality tires will go into the retreading process itself.
That is invisible to the naked eye. By passing low electrical current across the inside of the tire, even the smallest hole in the rubber inner liner will arc with the metal roller on the outside of the tread to indicate a breach. Some retreaders also use shearography to inspect the internal components of the tire by comparing images before and after a vacuum is pulled on the casing. A trained technician then analyzes the images to determine if any internal separations are present that might affect the performance or safety of the finished product. In some cases, retreaders will even use X-ray technology to determine the extent of damage due to an injury in the casing. The casing is the foundation of every retread, and like any foundation, it must be strong enough to withstand the forces that will be applied, so a thorough inspection is necessary. The next step is called buffing, and it entails the removal of the worn tread so the new tread rubber can be applied. Special rasp blades spin at high RPMs to strip away the worn tread and create a uniform surface for the new tread rubber. Crumb rubber, that is the result of the buffing process, is collected and recycled into rubber mats and other rubber products to further the positive environmental impact associated with retreading. Computerized buffers prepare the casing to an exact diameter with a radius that mimics the radius of the original tread to ensure the forces applied to the retread are as close as possible to a tire in its original condition. Technicians must program the size, manufacturer, and model to ensure the buffer prepares each individual casing for maximum performance. This is not a one-size-fits-all process. Before the casing can be transformed into a retread, every damaged area on the buffed surface or sidewall must be prepared in a process called skiving. Skilled technicians use a variety of special rotary tools to remove any damage to the belt package. If the injury is superficial, then the technician can just skive out the damage. If the injury extends beyond the first or second steel belt package, then the casing is sent to the repair department where the damage can be completely removed and filled with rubber before the area is reinforced on the inside with a patch. Damage that does not require a full repair can be filled with uncured rubber from an extruder gun, or a special cushion gum rubber extruder that fills the skived out areas with uncured rubber while spreading a thin layer of rubber over the buffed surface that will eventually bond or vulcanize the new tread to the casing. The most common type of truck tire retread is called pre-cure because the final tread design is already molded and cured. Machines called builders measure, cut, and align the tread on the casing. Another type of pre-cure retread is called a ring tread or unicircle because the tread rubber is applied as a continuous rubber ring around the tire. Special builders apply the rubber and center it on the casing. The other type of retread is called mold cure because the final tread is molded into the tire after thin strips of uncured rubber are wrapped around the casing to precise specifications. Once the casing has reached the final dimensions, it is cured in a press similar to the way that new tires are produced. Before a pre-cure retread can be transformed into a fully functioning tire, it must be placed in a rubber envelope and sealed at the bead. By pulling a vacuum on the envelope, pressure is created between the tread rubber and the casing. Pre-cure retreads are cured in large chambers that combine constant heat and pressure over several hours to vulcanize or molecularly bond the tread rubber to the casing. Mold cure retreads are placed in individual presses that use heated plates to cure the rubber and mold the final sidewall and tread designs. The casing is positioned in the press, and then the rubber is vulcanized after heat and pressure are applied. After pre-cure retreads are finished curing in the chamber, the envelopes must be removed so final inspection can take place. Another skilled technician carefully inspects the inside and outside of the tire, looking for any anomalies or out-of-service conditions. By using a grazing light, the technician can spot any irregularities in the sidewall that might be a sign of a potential problem down the road. Some retread plants will put every retread through another round of non-destructive testing with a nail hole detector to spot any holes in the inner liner, or a high pressure tester to fully inflate each retread before it is delivered to the customer. Minor repairs to sidewall rubber are buffed smooth to maintain a more uniform appearance. And the retread tire identification number is branded on the sidewall to reflect the retreader and the date of manufacture. The final step of the process for a pre-cure retread is to apply special rubber paint to the sidewall to give it a uniform appearance. Mold cure retreads are given the same level of final inspection by a skilled technician, but the excess rubber from the vent holes in the mold and the flashing where the plates meet is removed to once again maintain a uniform appearance. What is a revolution? A revolution is a cycle. What is old becomes new again. Renewal, rebirth, reinvention. In a world where performance, cost efficiency, and preserving natural resources are getting more important every day, retreading is a simple solution to a complex problem. Save money, maximize performance, and protect the environment. Welcome to the Retread Revolution. Welcome to the future.
So hopefully you see in that process that it is a technologically advanced manufacturing process. It's not a, one of the things that we hear from some people that come and talk to us, like, oh, you're just gluing a new tread on an old tire. The key thing about retreading is quality in equals quality out. And you saw in that video the number of inspection points that every single casing and potential retread goes through. Now, I want to talk about the cost savings that potentially come from this. And if you guys have questions about the retreading process, we can talk about those at the end, and experts here can really answer any question that you may have. But the biggest benefit is simply cost. And fleets know that retreaded tires are their single best investment. A quality new tire, so I'm not talking about a low-cost Asian import, but a quality new tire with 2 retreads can deliver 500% more mileage than a low-cost, low-quality Chinese tire. And we have the statistics where 87% of fleets that have 100 or more trucks are using retreaded tires. Why is that? Because they have the data, the testing. They're constantly looking at their tire program to eke out every single penny they can to have the biggest return on that tire investment, and they know that retreading pays for them. And often we see that smaller cash-strapped operations are making decisions against their own economic self-interests. And I'm going to give you a very specific example. So this is a pretty decent-sized fleet, but if you look at 2018, they bought 12,000 new tires, and they bought almost 27,000 retreads. So their retread to new ratio was 2.2 to 1. They worked with their retread partner and said, look, in 2019, we want to increase the number of retreads that we use. So they brought down their new tire purchases to 9,000, increased retreading up to 34,000, which brought their ratio to 3.8 retreads to new tires in their fleet. Well, what were their savings? First of all, $4.2 million saved for this particular fleet in a single year. The environmental benefits that they generated, this one fleet, 1.5 million kilograms of CO2 saved by retreading, 237,000 gallons of oil saved by increasing their retreading, and 18,000 tires were kept out of landfill because of their use of retreading. And those same savings can translate no matter whether you're a fleet of 1 truck, 100 trucks, or 1,000 trucks. It all starts with the casing. You know, one and done tires, those cheap, low cost, low quality Asian imports, they're giving up 70% of the value in the casing itself. So if you're not buying a quality new tire that can be retreaded, you yourself are giving up a lot of that value. Quality new tires, when all of the engineering that goes into them, they're designing those casings to be retreaded multiple times, and they provide warranties and guarantees. So if you go and talk to the folks at Continental about one of the new tires that they're producing here at the show, they will say, we will guarantee you X 100,000 miles, X years, and X number of retreads from that particular tire. So they're guaranteeing the casing itself to be multiple retreads. So some of you might want low rolling resistance tires. Well, retreads have a solution for that. So if there's a tread design that you like in low rolling resistance, it's most likely there's an option available for you in retreading as well. There are over 40 SmartWay verified low rolling resistant retreads for both drive and trailer positions out on the market today. So now I really wanted to talk about some of those myths and misconceptions, primarily around safety and reliability of retreading. You know, one of the biggest things that we hear at the booth or when we're talking to people about retreading, even when I checked in here to get my badge, and I picked up my badge from the guy, and he's like, oh, tire retread. He's like, that's that stuff I see on the side of the road. And so, you know, I had to have a little conversation with him. This has been studied multiple times. Since 1995, there have been 5 independent studies looking at the reliability of retreading and whether they cause tire fragments on the side of the road. If I could snap my fingers and make every single retread that's in operation in the US today disappear and they were all replaced with new tires, in a year, there would be the same amount of rubber on our roads. Why is that? It's all down to inflation, improper repairs, running overloaded, or some other type of abuse. The biggest study out of these was done by NHTSA, where they picked up thousands of tire fragments all over the US. They analyzed them to determine if they were a new tire or a retreaded tire and what caused them to fail. What they found is that the rubber on the side of the road was from new tires and retreaded tires in exact equal proportion. And all of that comes again to underinflation, overloading, or some other type of abuse. And some of these state studies, like the Virginia DOT and Arizona DOT, the reason they undertook those studies is that they wanted to ban retreads. So a legislative body said, look, we see this rubber on the roads, we think retreads need to be banned. Both of those studies, at the end of them, recommended that the state buy more retreads because of the cost savings, the environmental impact, and no changes in performance and reliability. Some of the surprising places that you'll find retreads. So, school buses. Every day, millions of our students are transported to and from school safely on retreaded tires. And we're saving those local school districts millions of dollars by them successfully using retreads. I talked about commercial aircraft, 80% of them taking off and landing. Military aircraft also use retreads. Enthusiast 4x4 off-roading. Off-road construction, mining, massive users of retreaded tires. You're talking about tires that cost sometimes 5 and 6 figures new, and if you have a 50% savings for that tire in the mining industry, imagine how much that adds up for them. Emergency vehicles. Those New York City Fire Department trucks that responded to 9/11 running on retreaded tires. So if these guys are all comfortable using retreads, I think you should be as well. So we talked about this. Rubber on the road. It's both from new tires and retreaded tires. Fuel-efficient options in retreading. Yes, they're absolutely available. Another thing we hear is, I run across the desert, it's too hot to use retreads. Well, it's all about a tire inflation. You know, because those tires are run underinflated, the steel in there is flexing. And that flexing, whether it's a new tire or retreaded tire, could potentially lead to a failure. You know, one of the things I like to say is, think about a paper clip. If you take that paper clip and flex it enough in that same spot, it's going to snap. And that's what's happening in these tires that are run underinflated. That flexing is happening, and eventually that tire is going to fail. So when you see some of those carcasses on the side of the road, the next time take a look and see how many of them have steel sticking out of them. And what does that tell you? That tells you that the casing failed because of that flexing. It was not a retread failure. It doesn't have, you know, retreads themselves, the retreading process, you didn't see any steel going into that. It's all rubber. And then the last thing is, you know, some people, this is important to some people. They're like, retreads don't look as good as new tires. If you believe that, I would encourage you to come see us and see the retreads that we have on display and see if you can tell the difference between them and a new tire. I will tell you that in the past shows where we've done this, over 80% of the people were not able to correctly identify all the new tires versus the retread tires. And that just speaks to the quality of retreading as well. I mentioned this, you know, quality in, quality out. It depends on the retread operation, but you know, sometimes 30% or more of the casings that come into a plant ultimately get rejected before they get retreaded. So again, only those good casings, quality casings that can be retreaded go through the process. Multiple inspection points, which you saw in that video. From start to finish, there are places where the tires can be rejected, and obviously retreaders are being very careful in that. We all, as an industry, have developed recommended practices that we follow, and all of those retread plants are following them. You can, if you go to our website, you yourself can look at the recommended practices that should be followed, and also helps give you confidence in the retreading process. So I can't talk about retreading without talking about the sustainability benefits that go along with them, because they're massive. I mean, you know, retreading was green before retreading was before green was cool. Sorry, can you guys help me in the back? There we go. From conception to end of life, retreading is green at every stage in the process. So, as I mentioned, specifically designed for multiple retreads, so that tire can be reused multiple times. Retread plants themselves, in processing, are very focused on environmental benefits. They're often using solar power. You saw them recycling the buffing dust that comes out of that retreading process. Every single thing that goes into the retread plant that doesn't go out as a retread gets recycled in some way. Huge amount of savings in raw materials, whether that's rubber or oil, and we'll look at that in a minute. Reduced carbon emissions as well, and huge landfill avoidance by the usage of retreaded tires. I could list like page after page of the various benefits, environmental benefits, but these are some of the things that are important. 68% less oil to manufacture a retreaded tire compared to a new tire. Greenhouse gas emissions reductions, massive. Natural rubber usage, and it lowers that. So you're also saving land and water to cultivate those rubber trees that are creating that natural rubber. Just in the US, we decrease tire waste by 1 billion pounds annually within the retreading industry. Energy savings that you could translate to what it costs to power homes. And importantly, those jobs that we support locally are crucial to the importance of retreading. So I wanted to look at some of the future. So you saw this machine in the video. Inspection technology and non-destructive testing of retreaded tires only continually improves. So again, focused on that quality in, quality out. As this continues to improve, that will only make retreads better and better with increases in inspection technology. As with every other industry in the US and around the world, retreaders are finding it hard to find people to work in the plants. So there is an increased focus on automation and robotics, whether it's at the buffing stage or the building stage. An increased use of automation is important in the plants, not only for uniformity and quality control, but also the challenges that we face in finding people. And this is an example of a robotic builder island. So the tires have been buffed, had the cushion gum rubber on, and now they're having that rubber put on the outside by these two robots that will then go into the building process. And we're seeing more of this come through the retreading industry, both in Europe and here in the US. Oops, sorry, can you go back one slide for me? Thank you. Some of you may have heard these airless tires. So if air is the enemy of tires, whether they're new or retreaded, the manufacturers are looking at ways that they can take the air out of the tires and still provide performance. So all of them have a product. Michelin has something called the Tweel, which they're using actively today in agricultural applications, primarily with mowers. Everybody's looking at using this in the commercial trucking industry, military applications. This is an example from Goodyear. Bridgestone has a product as well. So if we can take out the air and the damage that it ultimately causes to the tire if it's run underinflated, then you can have multiple retreads. And there are companies that are actually retreading these tires today in the US. This is just one other example. This is a consumer passenger concept tire from Continental. The idea being that it's a completely reusable casing for a passenger tire, a reusable tread with indications of when that tire is ready to be retreaded. So it's not only the commercial trucking industry, but also the passenger industry that they're looking at future advancements for retreading. Sorry. So if you're looking for a retreader, I would say use us as a resource. You can go to retread.org, and we have a buyer's guide, which you can search by state and city, so you can find someone close to you that can give you an option for retreading. Even though we showed this video, there's nothing better than visiting a retread plant and seeing it for yourself to help convince you of the benefits of retreading. And you know, those guys that are retreading tires local to wherever you are, they are very happy and they are proud to have people come into their plant, see their operation, and talk to them about their manufacturing process. And I would say talk to your current provider. So who are you buying tires from today? What are their retread options? And if they don't have them, maybe you should be talking to someone else. And I think Tony could help you with that.
I could probably do that, yes. I can tell you for a fact, usually in our plants, if I can get you into our plant and give you a tour, we probably have about a 90% conversion rate because we will convince you to run our tires.
Sorry, can you advance me one slide, please? One more, thank you. Okay, so again, listed our website, retread.org. We have several videos, so you saw that plant tour. We have an environmental benefits of retreading video as well, one specifically on the true causes of rubber on the road, so if you want to understand that a little better. Those industry recommended practices I talked about. All of those government studies, if you're having trouble falling asleep at night and you want something to read, they're all on our website, and you can read those 100-page documents of government studies that have all come out in support of retreading. And you know, contact us if you have any question. That's what we're here for as an organization. We can help connect you with a retreader that can answer those questions or connect you with a supplier as well. So, from me, just a final word before we open it up to questions for you guys. Let me remind you, if you include retreading as a part of your tire program, you're going to, first of all, and most significantly, save a lot of money. We're talking 50% savings around your current tire investment expenses. You are going to take advantage of the investments that are being made at those new tire manufacturing facilities. All of that engineering and testing and manufacturing that's going into those new tires, if you're not retreading them, you're just wasting that. You're going to have a very positive impact on the environment, keeping tires out of landfills, saving natural resources, and you're also going to be supporting your local community, and you're going to be supporting U.S. jobs. So with that, thank you for the time. Any questions for me or these guys up here? We're happy to answer anything you have about the retreading process. So I'll open it up to you guys. Yes, sir. so I can hear you.
30% of the casings that fail, what do you do with those? Are you able to recycle that rubber, or what do you do with the casings
Yep.
that fail?
So the question was, those 30% of casings that come into a plant that fail, what happens to those? So Tony, do you want to talk about that process?
Yeah, in many cases, what you will have, the reason they'll fail, there's a number of reasons. One is any fleet that we work with, trucker, you will help set the specifications. So how many repairs would you like to have in it? What types of repairs would you allow? Also, once again, you know, age limits, things like that. So some of what fails may not work for you. Those tires can sometimes be moved to another customer. Now, if it's completely junk, those will go to recyclers. A lot of these guys now, in some states, they're grinding these up. They're being used to produce energy is what they're doing. If anybody's ever seen a tire fire, you see how black smoke's coming off of it? That's because it's not burning at the right temperature. If you burn that at the right temperature, the amount of BTUs that come out of that is incredible and can be used to produce energy. Anything else?
I got a question
Yeah.
slash comment. I know usually our tires are like rejected at J&E. I cannot believe the process they go through. He's been through it tour, but that just blew my mind. If you don't have a backup, which Lord knows we'll never get out of that, how long does it take to actually, just curiosity, to do a tire, to retread one in the manufacturing? Then I got a follow up on that as since we do all this stuff with the tires that are rejected, why do we still have to pay the $25 for them to take the tire if we're doing good? I mean, because that kind of just ticks me off. When it's not recapable, we still have to pay $25. Why do we have to do that?
She was asking a couple questions there, and I can take both those. Her first one was she was asking about how long it typically would take to do a tire. In most retreaders, and we do that, like I said, we have 4 manufacturing plants. One of our processes does take a little longer, and it is the AccuTread process, the molds, just because of you have to have the individual molds. But usually what we're looking at is a week turnaround time. That's what we strive for. So if we would pick it up on a Monday, we would try to deliver it back on the route on the following Monday. There are exceptions to that on occasions. It's like anything else, unfortunately. You know, you can run into some things. We're running into what a lot of people are, and that's a supply chain issue. Sometimes we are having problems getting the tread designs from the manufacturers. We are starting to buy in bulk a little bit more just to ensure we don't have that. So I hope that answers that question. So a 1-week turn is what we strive for. Your second question is if a casing fails, why are you having to pay to get rid of it? We just had this question earlier today. So we'll get those casings into the retread plant. If as a customer you don't want those delivered back to you, we have to dispose of them. What we will do is we have to pay for a semi to haul those off. So we will have a scrap hauler. They will place that. Right now we're paying about $1,600 per trailer to get rid of those. So we have to unfortunately pass those costs along. The only upside we have is that we can jam as many as we can get onto that trailer. So if we do have just the 2 sidewalls, we're wedging those in. We'll take passenger tires, we'll wedge those in, but that's where the costs are coming. And of course, our government, they do love to get their fees on anything they can.
But am I wrong in when I say that you are now selling what you provided all to that truck, tire shreds?
No, we actually pay them to take it. So no, we are not. We actually, typically, we probably lose a little bit on those. Now, the recyclers, depending on how they go, there are guys out there, they call them casing jockeys, things like that, where they'll come and they will go through scrap on occasions. Right now, there's a shortage of casings. If you are not retreading, you should be talking to a retreader because they will buy your casings as long as they're in the right age frame and everything else. We're actively looking. If I walk into one of you and I'm talking to you and trying to sell you a retread and you tell me you don't use retreads, my next question is going to be, what are you doing with your casings? Would you be willing to sell them? So there is a very good market for them right now. It is going up. But as everything goes up, of course, then that means when I have to sell you a cap and casing, that price has now went up as well. But that's all being driven off the new tire side too. If you're looking at a good quality drive tire now, new, you're paying $500 and up. So everything's going up. So the cap and casings are going up too.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Any other questions? So-
What's the age that you guys typically, because everybody that runs tires, runs trucking companies, 5 years is about, the age that you want to probably get away from that tire. Because these leasing companies that lease these trailers, it seems like we get recaps on them, and these tires are upwards 15 years old. So it's like, how old do you guys stop?
So the question was about the age of tires that, is there a limit on when they should be retreaded? And specifically because of working with leased trailers that might have older products.
There actually is no industry standard on age. Most retreaders right now are going about 7 years max, tends to be it. Once again, that's all set by fleets. We have fleets that'll say 5 years, nothing over that. Many times I think they're giving up money. That casing doesn't magically go bad at 5 years. It's no different than food that you have in your refrigerator. You'll find people, oh, the expiration date, and they throw it away. There's probably nothing wrong with it. The same thing will happen with tires. People will look at that age and say, okay, I don't want to do it because of this. Well, you want to look at your DOT dates because you could buy a brand new tire and it could already be 3 years old depending on what warehouse it was sitting in. So it didn't magically go bad. So each one of those is individual really to your operation. I'd heard you say you're leasing, correct? That really gets there because your vehicles are going out and back. And so you'll see different things, you may not see it. The biggest issue we see with leasing vehicles and stuff, you're not in control of the maintenance in many cases. So if that, and David had mentioned it many times, the biggest killer to tires is not having enough inflation. So if you don't have enough inflation, then it's also easy to overload it. Vehicles that don't get inspected that often, they're out, with a different customer, you can't control them. You don't know whether they're getting the air pressure, they're getting that maintenance they need, and that can be really tough. Now, a lot of people go, well, I don't want to use a retread then because it's not getting the maintenance. Well, if it's not getting the maintenance, whether it's a new tire or a bad tire, the odds are it could go bad and fail. Which would you rather lose the money on, a retread or a new tire that you paid more on? So we have those discussions all the time. Did that kind of hit what you're after? And if I missed it, let me know. Because I was getting the question kind of relayed through David too, so. Anybody else? Yeah, I'll come to you this time. Here, I'm even gonna let you do this.
Up for that one.
Sure.
I run Y-base singles
Okay.
on the trucks, and I am venturing into the retread scenario with those Y-base singles.
Yes.
And I have gone through 8 sets of retreads in like 6 months. One of the problems I'm having is they are way out of balance. Now, is that normal for a retread tire to be wickedly out of balance?
Boy, am I glad you asked that question. The one thing you're going to find with, there are different retread processes. As I said, we do 3 different processes. That white-base tire is a big tire. When you retread it, you are putting a lot of rubber back onto that. There are a number of processes. Like I said, got one I'm really, really proud of. I'm wearing the shirt here. It's one that we invented. We're the ones that still own this process. It is a mold process. It's what you were seeing on the screen on the mold process. One of the nice things with either the mold process or that ring process is that rubber is then very uniform on the casing. So you're not going to have the heavy spots. You're not going to have light spots that you can get on the pre-cure process. And that's because it's being put on a strip and it has to be spliced. So that could be part of it. The ultra-wide base is a very touchy casing. They are very, very sensitive to pressure changes between the axles on the different sides. You want to make sure you're really staying consistent on those. You need to look at bearings, you need to look at axles, there's a number of different things. But if you're going to retread the ultra-wide base, I would definitely suggest either a ring or our mold process. They work the best, and we do a lot of them, and we do both processes, so we've had very good success. I'm going to get some exercise. There aren't such things.
Yeah, I'll prove you wrong. You mentioned picking your tread pattern.
Yes.
Do you have to, is the tread pattern that you pick for retread have to match the casing that you have? And the other question, how much of the performance of the tire is built into the casing and how much of it is in the tread?
You did not ask stupid questions. Those are very good, both of them. What you're going to look at is when you buy the casing, I'm going to get out of that way because I'm getting the feedback, or I'm going to. The casing will have certain characteristics, and it goes on. So the load carrying capability comes from the casing. So, and I'm going to answer a question that hasn't been asked yet, but people will sit there and go, well, if I do this, is it going to change it? Our retread is not going to change your load carrying capability at all. It's just a tread design. So the tread design is going to be based on what you want to accomplish. Do you want to drive tread? Do you want, traction? Is that your main key? He talked about low rolling resistance. We do have the Smart Way approved stuff. So is fuel economy what you're after? So you would sit, we would talk to you, we would try to learn little bit about your fleet, what it is you carry, what it is that really makes sense to you. And based on that, then you go find the tread pattern, and you go that way.
Okay, I bought a used truck. Okay. You decide this is the pattern I need. The guy before me that had the truck needed a whole different tire, so the casings that I have, will they still take?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's no problem. Typically what you're going to look at on that then would be you would decide what design you wanted, and then we would figure out the tread width that fits it the best. That, we have different molds for widths to match those up. When you do the pre-cure or the pre-cure processes, it comes in the slabs or whatever, you order those by width too. So the casing, whatever he had, he could have had, let's say, a closed shoulder drive, and you want an open one, not a problem. We can do that. Anybody else? Doug, I'm feel bad. Anything else? As you can tell, I like talking about this. Like I said, we do tours. If I can get you into one of our plants, you will ask questions you never thought of. If you watched, I just went blank, Bubba Gump, Forrest Gump. They were talking about retreading. Oh, he's a retreader. You go in, you saw these pieces of equipment. We're talking $500,000 pieces of equipment. This isn't low tech by any means.
So my question is, I've purchased a lot of tires, and it's always been said to me not to go with the retread. So can you reiterate a little bit about, because I'm thinking about running now where the weather is warmer. I was told in the cold they'll last, but then when you get to the hotter areas, not necessarily Arizona, but any type of warm. Yeah, right. Can you explain?
Yeah, that one's easy. And we get that all the time. It drives me nuts. Everybody goes, oh, as soon as it gets hot, the retreads start to fail. Well, as soon as it starts to get warm, what else happens? You guys start getting your trucks out. All winter long, how many techs do any of you know that want to crawl underneath a truck and do any kind of work in the cold, the wet? Anybody know that? Yeah, they don't. So what happens? You're sitting back, you're trying to cut your hours, you're not doing maintenance, as much as you need to. Nobody's checking the trailers, that's for sure. So what happens? All of a sudden, the weather turns nice, just like it is now. Ooh, we got to get those trucks out. So they hook up the trailers and away they go, and guess what they forgot to do? They didn't check the air pressure. They didn't check the brakes. They didn't check a lot of things. The temperature, it does hurt tires as such, but as David was saying, it's because the air pressure is low, so that tire is flexing in ways it wasn't designed to do. That builds up heat. That heat is what actually kills the tire. And his analogy was great. I always use coat hanger, but if you keep bending that, it's going to fail at that point. It's what's called a zipper rupture. You'll look and you'll see the whole sidewall's gone. So when people tell you that it's heat, you can run in Arizona all day long if your temperatures are right. They have no problems because you will hit a certain temperature, and at that point, all the new tire manufacturers will tell you that. They do all that testing. It's not going to hurt the casing. It will equalize. And once again, as I'd said, the casing, the retread has nothing to do with the casing anyway, as far as we use as a platform to put our new tread on. But other than that, it's the characteristics of the casing. So, many people will ask about retreads. Anybody who knows, right over here there's an airport, and there's these big brown jets going in all day long. They got package cars. You do realize they use almost 90% retreads. And they use them on the steer tires. Those package cars that are delivering to your house, most of those have steer tires, and I do know that are retreaded because I did about 10,000 one year. So if that tells you anything, FedEx, they do the same thing. You can use steer tire retreads in many applications, buses you can't, hazmat. Having said that, we don't much because you need a spot to generate casings from anyway. So that's where we'll get the good casings and we move those back. But that should give you an idea that they're safe. I put my child on them. So, anything else? Yes. Yeah.
The tread design where they roll around and glue it on in one piece. Now, it'd be spliced together. Now, is that typical for them to lift on the sidewalls, on the wide base singles, and to chunk out?
I can answer that for you. He was asking where you will have a splice on the pre-cured product where you put the two together. You have a piece of rubber that adheres those two together. On some of those, you'll get a chunk out. Sometimes that can be contamination that they managed to get during the process. Other times it can be where the actual build package did lift too a little bit. The wide base casings, they take a lot of abuse. One of the things you can see, especially, like I said, they're very air pressure sensitive. If they do have an issue, the build edges like to lift a little bit, and that's where you'll see some of that. Now, the other thing too, on the flat, you're taking a piece of material that's flat and you're trying to bend it. They do like to get a little cracking along those edges every now and then. Typically, that will not cause a failure. Depending on your DOT guy, they can get a little funky because most of the DOT people, they really don't have much training as far as tires, unfortunately. Anybody else? We good? Doug? I know you got to throw something in.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Good job, Tony.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming. I do have a handful of one of the brochures that we do. It's called Understanding Retreading. It shows all the steps in the process, talks about some of those things that we talked about today. Please stop by our booth, 13036 in the North Wing. Check out the retreads that we have on display there. Come ask any other questions or find a retreader that might be local to you. So thanks again. Have a great show, everyone.